Okay, so, hello everyone, and today I'm going to be talking about Orlando Furioso. Actually, I'm going to be talking about two different translations, but this is the one that really got me wanting to talk about it because I think it's the best one I've read, even though it's incomplete. And it's a nice morning over here in the park, and my shoes are actually kind of soaked now because I walked through the grass and it was very dewy. But anyway, yeah, so this is from the Ballantine Adult Fantasy series, which I mean, by now a lot of people, especially on YouTube, are aware of its merits. And yeah, I bought this a while ago, back when I was starting to collect fantasy and SF more, and for a while it intrigued me until I actually got down to reading it. But the thing about this, I'd been familiar with the premise of the story for a long time because I grew up with this big book of Gustave Doré illustrations from like his entire life, and the section on Orlando Furioso was the most intriguing because the illustrations were the most wild, outlandish, sort of adventurous, and portrayed a lot of things that appealed to me and still do. And so, but it was years until I actually got down to reading it, because I think the excerpts presented with the illustrations were the verse instead of the prose version. And so I'll be honest, I've read Paradise Lost, I've read parts of the Divine Comedy, the Inferno in verse, but it's much easier, I think, for me as a admittedly contemporary reader to read and get into these things when they are in prose. So, and the thing about this translation is that it is very easy to read. It's very smooth, but it preserves the feel of kind of the original language, but it's almost colloquial at times. But I found myself really getting into it. And Richard Hodgins, who wrote this, apparently didn't finish the rest of the translation, as far as I know. It would be great to find out if he actually did and it was just sitting around, because I really loved this translation, and it's a shame that, yeah, it was just the first section of Orlando Furioso. But I read through it, and it's just this wonderful, adventure chock full of just all these different locations, characters, fantastic things going on. You go to the tomb of Merlin, and there's, griffins and things that are just, rings and fountains that dissuade lovers from being enamored with each other, or reverse that. And then there's these just various things, and combining a lot of other myths and legends, and sometimes even satirizing, or kind of being a little self-aware, but overall I think its tone is this sprawling, fun epic. And the illustration on the cover is presenting this chapter called The Slaying of the Orc, or at least it's presented as a chapter in here. And I'll just read a section from that part. Okay. Yeah, so it kicked off from the anchor in its gorge, being that of the orc, which is the sea serpent, and swam up to the surface, never letting go of the cable he had tied to the anchor. He surfaced and swam as fast as he could to the shore, where he set his feet against the rock and pulled the cable in. The orc, with the anchor caught in its mouth, was forced to follow. Orlando could exert more force in one tug on that cable than a capstan could in 10 turns. Like a wild bull that suddenly feels like a lasso catch one horn and leaps and turns about and raises and lowers its head, unable to free itself, so the orc was drawn, writhing and wriggling helplessly by the force of Orlando's arm. It followed where he pulled, and it could not escape. All this time, blood was pouring out of its mouth in a great stream, and its tail was lashing so that you could see bottom in the cove. Red spray dyed the shores and rose to dim the light of the morning sun. To this day, the place might be called another Red Sea, and the echoing sounds of the sea and of the orc itself were indescribable. That's one of the exciting action-oriented sections, but there's this other section where one of the knights takes possession of a blunderbuss that had been used against him and other knights, and this weapon, this death-dealing long-distance weapon, is just unthinkable for the chivalric knights, and so then Orlando takes this and basically takes it, and he's out at sea, and it says, once he was sailing over deep water, out of sight of land on any side, he took the thing and said, so that never again may a knight fail in bravery on account of you, so that never again may the wicked brag that they are better. Here you stay, O damned, O abominable machine, manufactured in the Tartarian deep by the malignant Beelzebub, who intended to ruin the world through you, to hell, where you came from. I send you back again. And saying this, he threw it over the side into the dark ocean. And then, but of course, later on, it describes how it was picked up by another if I'm not mistaken. It's later on it's like picked up and found again, so it's the knowledge of this thing wasn't entirely lost. But there's a bunch of different stuff like that in there, and I think what appealed to me about it was that the way it's described on the back of this edition and it emphasizes those appealing elements. So you've got, thronged with sorcerers, hippogriffs, ladies and their knights, magic rings, wondrous swords, magnificent horses, and more plots than you can shake a sword at, and a brilliant dream world teeming with life, laughter, and a super colossal cast of world-renowned heroes. So, in order to finish the story, I had to find another, translation, but I, found a prose translation from Oxford World's Classics. And this one's very good, but the description on the back kind of put me off in a way. Basically says it's enlivening and unifying the whole work is the vital personality of the author, endlessly teasing his readers and dropping casual asides about his contemporaries. Though highly serious in purpose and sophisticated in design, Orlando Furioso displays to the full Ariosto's remarkable sense of the absurd. And it's really barely even emphasizing any of the fantastical elements, more like pointing out the historical aspects of it that were integrated, like the war between the Franks and the Saracens, and just things like that. But this is like the more academic, I guess, approach, but it's also was the less appealing way to market it, or I guess so. But I think that I definitely got my inspiration's worth out of it, and it's not the kind of no, I think it is actually. It is the kind of book that will kind of appeal to a lot of people despite its time, because there's enough humor in it. I think if you're not quite keen on a work taking itself too seriously, especially from that period, but No, there's enough wit in it, but it's just imagination overall. And I can see why. Like, it was one of the most popular books ever at a time. And it's kind of, not talked about too much now, but it's definitely, like, I think ripe for getting rediscovered again. So that's about it, I think. Just wanted to mention that book, and should be more coming up next week. But till then, have a good day.